Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to Ask the Wasteland Reviewer. So to celebrate my 200 subscribers, which took 4.5 years, but we're finally there, I'm doing this little Q&A and I have some questions from a variety of different people, and I tried my best not to come up with any specifically for myself. Now I do get things started with a pretty straightforward question that I feel like a lot of people get asked as a cinephile, a film fan, is who's your favorite actor? And it's very interesting because I feel like there's a couple of different kinds of actors. There's the thespian actors, the Kenneth Branaghs, the Alan Rickmans of like today, more the Laurence Oliviers of like classic cinema that are theatrical, they're big, they're acting, capital A. And then you have method actors who are very natural. You have the Brandos, the De Niros, the Hoffmans, and you have all of them. And then you have presence. There's movie stars that just have so much charisma and presence on screen that you can't help but want to watch them. And interesting enough, for somebody that loves film so much, my favorite actor is definitely the last one, and it's Charlton Heston. Strange, right? I grew up watching The Ten Commandments and Ben-Hur so much as a kid, and just couldn't believe this larger-than-life character on screen, and boy, does Charlton Heston bring intensity and presence to the screen. When you're anchoring 3.5-hour epic films, you need to have some presence. And he sure does. And whether it's that or like small things where he pops up in like True Lies is basically Nick Fury. You pay attention. Or in with Tombstone has like a handful of lines. You pay attention. And that's one of the most interesting things about Charlton Heston, Planet of the Apes. Just iconic lines, and one of my favorite things to reference is the end of Planet of the Apes. And boy, does he bring that intensity. So, interesting enough, it's Charlton Heston. Now, one that I came up with my girlfriend as we were sitting there trying to think of questions and having our cat sitting there is, who's my favorite movie animal companion? And this one was easy. I changed it from being pet, because is this animal really a pet or not? And it's Dog from The Road Warrior. I want Australian cattle dog so much because of that movie. I understand it's going to be like hours and hours and hours of activity with this dog for like if I get one. And that's needed because they're insane and so smart. And Dog is the animal embodiment of Max. He's small, he's scrappy, he never gives up. And boy, do I want to jump through the screen at one particular moment in that film. And this dog is trained to use a shotgun. Pretty cool, right? Not many dogs can say that. So definitely Dog from Road Warrior is my favorite pet companion in film. Now, this was a question, what do I miss most about the theater experience? Which I've only been to drive-ins since all of this happened, trying to make sure that keeping people around me safe, specifically very close people in my life who are at risk, so I've avoided going to inside a movie theater. I think the biggest thing is when you're in the movies, you're at the movies. You're in a mindset. You're glued into that screen in a dark room. It's so hard to avoid the distractions at home. This thing, your computer, others around you. When you're at the movies, you're supposed to be quiet. You're watching it. You're engaged in it. And that experience of being lost in a film is lost at home, which is why it'd be the coolest thing ever to have a home theater. But room specifically for that reason. Leave your phone outside. But thinking about that experience and being able to enjoy a film in that way is definitely one of my most excited things when I get back to the theaters and missing that experience. And some movies are just so beautiful and need to be experienced on that big screen. Now, what sparked my love for movies? And it's interesting because like I remember being a kid and going to the movies. Like there's a one theater movie house in my hometown that I recall seeing Indian in the Cupboard at before it shut down. I remember seeing Space Jam. Remember my aunt and her boyfriend falling asleep at Phantom Menace I remember missing the whole last hour of Fellowship of the Ring because my aunt didn't check how long this 3-hour movie was. I remember seeing Shrek in the theater and seeing all the Harry Potter movies in theaters. Those were like the big thing. They used to come out in November around my birthday, so it'd always go for my birthday. And I think the big thing is like I always used to watch movies with my mom and my brother. I've seen so many horror movies throughout like middle school and the high school just because my brother was watching them. I saw so many action movies. Like I watched Star Wars and Rocky and Rambo, and I watched The Godfather when I was 10 years old, and I think because of my grandpa. I think it's people in my life sharing that experience, taking me to the movies, showing me movies that they love, which is also probably why I love action movies so much, is because my mom did. And watching so many different things, I took a cinema class my senior year of high school, and then college was when I felt like I really became a cinephile. And I used to go to Princeton Record Exchange and buy like $2-3 used DVDs, which helped create this monstrosity behind me. Because this used to be like one small bookshelf worth of movies. And then I bought bins, and now I have this giant wall that extends around me here. And I think seeing films like No Country for Old Men and The Big Lebowski and The Road Warrior in college really set me on this course of loving film. And I remember experiencing Princeton Garden Theater for the first time and seeing films like Grand Budapest Hotel and Birdman when I started seeing indie films. And being a part of Ryder's Alternative Films Club was a big thing too, getting to see those foreign, independent, and classic films. I think that's what really set me on this course of loving film so much, and now I watch everything and anything. So, hopefully that's a good answer to that question. That one was from my brother. Then I have some questions from my friend Alex, so I'm going to pull them up. So, what movie relates and resonates to your work life the most? And it's interesting because I work in higher education. I think education is so important and learning. Dead Poets Society popped into my head because I think any teacher just could wish that they could be Mr. Keating and can inspire their students in that way. I have to find out some interesting ways to inspire my students learning statistics and math. That's the fun part. But that film, I get so emotionally attached every time I watch it. I remember watching for the first time my senior year of high school in English class, just falling in love with it. And that inspiring and different kind of teaching, because like they have all the old guys and God, they were in Latin class, and like I took Latin for 5 years. Mrs. Poyet definitely wasn't like that. She inspired us, and why I enjoyed taking Latin for 5 years. But not that Latin class in Dead Poets Society. You're just chanting, basically chanting conjugations. But Dead Poets Society is definitely something that hits me very close to home. My personal life. So this is interesting because I have two here, and they're very different. So like Perks of Being a Wallflower is a film that really hits close to home because like I was that quiet kid and was tentative and trying to find myself, and college really helped with that for me. But watching that film for the first time when I was in college really hit close to home for me and made me realize it's like this is a protagonist that I can really relate to. I was that quiet, nice kid that kind of was the wallflower, and getting to see him grow. I obviously haven't experienced all the things that Charlie experiences in that film, but that's just something that hits close to home. And this is going to sound funny. So I don't want to say like The Godfather or Goodfellas, because like I grew up in a very ethnically Italian household, and that would be a bit much saying. But one film that hits me in an interesting way is My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And if you replace Greek with Italian, instead of the father thinking that every single word derives from Greek, just having the grandfather just basically say whatever he wants, like my grandfather did, make up his own words, and replace all the Nicks with either Anthony's or Joseph's, and we're good. And that's basically what it's like being in a big Italian family. So there's some kindred spiritness there between Italian and Greek people, and I'm just like, wow, this movie hits really close to home. Way more than I expected this to. So that's an interesting pick for that question. Which directorial career are you most surprised with? I think one of the most surprising ones for me is, like, obviously I didn't experience most of this, but the fact that Clint Eastwood went from being this, like, big, tall, stoic actor in westerns to becoming a prolific director with interesting range too, from Million Dollar Baby to Unforgiven. Obviously he has a lot of westerns. Play Misty for me. And things haven't been the best recently. He's still very efficient. He's pumping out those movies at like 90 years old. But I really think that's an interesting and surprising career, that he was able to do that and have such prolific careers in both ways. Now, the follow-up question is, what's the most disappointing? And this one came to mind really quickly, and it's M. Night Shyamalan. Oh, because I love Signs, Unbreakable, and Sixth Sense. Love. I really like The Village a lot. I don't have a problem with the twist in it. Lady in the Water, Last Airbender, After Earth, just what the hell happened? And I couldn't believe it. And then you have Come Back with the Visit, which is fun. Loved Split. And I was so excited for Glass, and it just let me down again. And I hated so much of Glass. And I'm just like, don't hurt me again, M. Night Shyamalan. But at least I'll always have Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, and Signs. Now, next question is, what do you want to see change in Hollywood and American cinema? For somebody who loves blockbusters so much, I really want them to go back to actually having like a middle class of film. Like films like Ford v Ferrari. It's a relatively modest budget for today, but it's not about superheroes or anything like that. It's just a classic Hollywood type film. I want to see more and more independence. I want to see those middle ground dramas and stuff like that, mid-budget kinds of films. Not everything, like, Endgame would not be what it was without that huge of a budget. But do I need to see a $175 million King Arthur movie? Do I need to see... I love Blade Runner 2049, but, like, did that need to be a $175 million movie? Which, unfortunately, didn't make money. But I want to see that middle ground come back, and theaters invest more in showing indies and showing those middle-of-the-road films. And I know it's tough because it is a business. I have a master's of accounting. I understand. Those blockbusters keep those theaters open. But I do want to see that middle-of-the-road kind of filmmaking come back. That it isn't just dirt cheap indies and giant monster budget films. What foreign flicks have you seen that you would recommend to someone who does not often watch foreign flicks? So this is an interesting one. So I have a bit of variety here, because I do love, like, you have like English language foreign films. Like, I love like The Nightingale and The Babadook, which those are fantastic. I love films like The Piano, which is from New Zealand. Taika Waititi, like most of his films are from New Zealand. Love them. But if you're talking about foreign language films, I have to talk about, I love Tarkovsky, Solaris, Stalker. If you love science fiction, go crazy with those two films. Kurosawa, love Yojimbo and Rashomon and Ran and Seven Samurai. So awesome in terms of samurai films. Spaghetti westerns. You have Sergio Leone having the Dollars trilogy. Technically they're in English because they were dubbed that way to come here, but Cinema Paradiso, beautiful film for film lovers and just a heartfelt film from Italy. And there's definitely a lot of French cinema. like having recently watched a bunch of Agnes Varda films, but like Jules and Jim, you want to have an experience, or 400 Blows, and different kinds of films like that. And then you have like Bergman with like Virgin Springs and Seven Seal and different films like that. So there's a whole bunch for you. Go check them out. And especially Guillermo del Toro's Spanish language work. Go check out those films like Kronos and Devil's Backbone. 100% check that one out. Pan's Labyrinth, they're all fantastic films as well. And then Alex wants to know if he could get $30. We'll talk about that later, Alex. In terms of my last two questions, so what criteria do I judge films on? Because that's the thing. Films can be so different, and especially now that I review documentaries. Big thing with documentaries, I try to see that they're impartial, because I feel like that is important. You have to be able to show different sides of a story if you're going to research and display something. If you're just extremely biased, then it takes away from your argument and not being able to portray different ideas. And I really respect that when I see a documentary that can balance both sides and give different perspectives. But when it comes to films in general, I look at the direction. Does everything click? Does the tone work? Does the pacing work? The cinematography, I love cinematography, so that's always something that I'm looking at. The score, the acting, and the writing, whether is this plot interesting, are these characters interesting, is there depth, does the dialogue work? I try to look at a variety of different things, but really when I'm critiquing a film, I always try to end my videos with more of giving a recommendation, because I know there's an audience for every film. And I'm not going to like every film, but I know that somebody out there is going to like this film in some shape or form. And here's a perfect example. I know plenty of people who love The Room and watch it as a comedy. I cannot step back and be like, this film was meant to be a comedy, I'm going to enjoy it that way. And I can't even sit through it. It's 2 hours of horrible pacing and just idiocy. Like, not gonna lie, I'll have fun watching clips of it, just like I'll have fun watching clips of like The Wicker Man, which Nick Cage. But as a film, no, I can't sit through that. I kept falling asleep watching The Room. It was that boring and just blah as a movie. But I know people love watching it and love laughing along to it. I don't feel comfortable laughing at the movie, because that's really what it is. You're not laughing with the jokes, you're laughing at the movie. But in terms of like the Transformers movie have huge fan bases, and most of them I can't stand, and they're just noise and offensive. But like, I know a lot of people do like them, and that's the thing. There's an audience for everything, so I try to be respectful of that. And my last one, and this was a great question from my friend Dave. What advice would I give somebody who wants to review, like become like a reviewer? And here's my advice. Think about what you want to do. Is this something that you're trying to make a career out of and make a job out of? Then really invest in it. Really invest in it. I make modest investments because I have a full-time job and a part-time job. And then I work with SIFPOP. And then I do this. So like, I have plenty on my plate. This isn't my full-time job. So like, I try to have a nice enough camera. I have soft boxes here to light things. But if you really want to do this and try to grow with it, invest in it. And invest a lot of time into it. With my reviews, I treat them more as a feeling. What are my feelings and perspectives leaving a film? I don't do extremely deep critiques. And if I do wind up going in that direction and those are things that you'd want to see me do, comment. And like recommend films that I do a deep critique on, that I would invest a bunch of time in and really break things down bit by bit. But mostly I'm giving, like I said, recommendations. Giving my main thoughts. What are things that really stuck out to me? And that's why I see so much, and why I'm able to see so much, is because I'm giving a feeling and a quick recommendation, and less of like deep analytical breakdown of a film. And because I just love talking about movies. That's why I do this. So I like when people comment and I could have a discourse with them about film. So I'm throwing some of my ideas out. And they're not all my ideas on the film. Sometimes I think about things and more things pop up. But what I would say is find your thing, because everybody has to have a thing. This is my thing. It wasn't originally my thing. When I first started reviewing films, I was writing them out on Facebook posts on my Facebook page, The Wasteland Reviewer, and I was breaking it down by category. I had mathematical systems because I have a master's in accounting, so that was my first thing. And then I realized that's not really what I want to do with this, and that's why I stopped grading films too. Because it's not about a grade, it's about, do I recommend this and who's this a good fit for? And what are my feelings on the film in terms of those different aspects that I mentioned before. So find your thing, because everybody has to have a thing. Like my friend Joe focuses on animated films, and his videos are zany and fun. I don't throw clips in here, I don't do stuff like that, because I guess this is more of vlog videos than me having a breakdown analytical critique of the film. And I do love having those conversations and having those deep dives and listening to things like the Cinephiles, because they really do deep dives and analyze things. So my advice, figure out what your motivations are for doing this and find your thing. And be yourself. I think those are the most important things for reviewing film. But those are all the questions that I have for all of you. I appreciate you tuning in and listening to Ask Your Wasteland Reviewer. And thank you all for being subscribers and supporting the Wasteland Reviewer YouTube channel. And thank you all for supporting me as well. And I'll see you all soon. And thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.